The term fortress city sounds like an impenetrable shield, but in the context of Russia's current strategy, it is actually a strategic mirage. The real trap isn't that Ukraine cannot take these cities, it is that by rotating forces to defend them, Kyiv is being forced into a grinding attrition cycle where every day spent holding ground costs more than they can afford. While headlines focus on tactical infiltrations, the strategic reality is Russia has shifted from conquest to containment, using fortified lines not to win battles today, but to freeze Ukraine's offensive capabilities for years without needing total victory. When leaders announce a new defensive line or label a city as impregnable, the headline rarely captures the full depth of the incentive structure at play. The question is, who designed this trap, who cannot afford to walk away, and what option still looks rational on each side? Today we read this move as strategy rather than as a morality play. We are not looking for heroes or villains in the mud, we are analyzing how two states calculate survival when facing finite resources against an expanding adversary. The narrative of falling cities obscures the deeper geometric shift occurring across the front. Russia is no longer trying to conquer Ukraine from Kyiv down, but rather squeezing the Ukrainian state into a position where its own defensive posture becomes the mechanism of its exhaustion. To understand why this matters, we must first discard the assumption that military success is measured solely in kilometers gained or lost on any given day. Since late 2022 and specifically mid-2023, the conflict has settled into intense trench warfare with static front lines where rapid expansion via new conquests has effectively ended. Russia has captured less than 1.5% of Ukrainian territory since January 2024 despite claiming strategic initiative. This is not a sign of Russian weakness, it is evidence of a deliberate pivot from operational maneuver to positional suffocation. The goal is no longer the immediate seizure of every major urban center, but rather the creation of an irreversible stalemate that exhausts Ukrainian manpower during forced rotation cycles while preserving Russian territorial gains for future leverage. Quick resource note: I keep a curated set of Amazon search links in the description for books, gear, and tools relevant to this channel's topics. Some are affiliate links, so I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you. Please consider supporting the channel by using those links if you find something useful. The physical reality on the ground supports this strategic shift. Russian fortifications are described as the most extensive works in Europe since World War II, featuring deep minefields, concrete dragon's teeth designed to stop tanks, and earthen berms extending well behind current lines. These defenses do not guarantee a permanent defender advantage if the attacker has superior strategy or technology. But for Ukraine, the immediate reality is that attempting to breach these lines during rotation periods results in catastrophic losses with minimal territorial gain. Analysis suggests Russia advances at an average rate of 15 to 70 meters per day slower than World War I's Battle of the Somme. But this slowness is precisely the weapon being wielded against Kyiv. This brings us to the critical cost of rotation, which serves as the engine driving Ukraine toward a losing position. The Ukrainian defensive line spans roughly 500 miles of active contact zone, part of a total defensive infrastructure that stretches across nearly 1,000 miles when accounting for rear areas and supply routes. This forces Kyiv into a grueling system where fresh troops must constantly feed into the meat grinder against Russian numerical superiority, with frontline strength estimated at 400,000 versus 250,000 Ukrainian personnel. Every day spent holding ground costs more than Ukraine can afford in terms of human capital and industrial output. The strategic mirage lies in the belief that defending a specific city is equivalent to winning the war. In reality, it is simply paying an entry fee for continued attrition where Russia holds the advantage in reserves. The data on casualties further illuminates this desperate calculus for both sides. While Ukraine faces a shortage of men to rotate through these lines, Russia has absorbed approximately 1.2 million total casualties, including killed, wounded, and missing, since February 2022, with 325,000 fatalities estimated over the course of the war. These figures are comparable to World War II-era losses for a major power, yet Moscow continues to push because their economic model is absorbing the strain better than anticipated, recording 0.6% growth in 2025 despite global sanctions and internal disruption. The Russian leadership has calculated that they can endure this attrition longer than Ukraine can sustain it. turning the war into a test of industrial endurance rather than tactical brilliance. This dynamic creates a cage where breaking out requires sacrificing entire units for ground gains so marginal they do not alter the strategic map. If Ukraine continues to fight for fortress labels rather than maneuver warfare, they risk being pinned in this defensive position where their desire to hold specific cities becomes the very mechanism of their exhaustion. The infiltration of these fortified zones is not a sign that Russia can simply walk into Kyiv tomorrow. It is proof that Ukraine's strategy has been neutralized by its own need to defend every inch of territory simultaneously. By forcing Kyiv to rotate forces through high-casualty sectors, Moscow ensures that the Ukrainian reserve pool shrinks, while Russian attrition stabilizes at a level they can replenish from their larger population base and mobilization capacity. The stakes extend far beyond the current front line because this frozen conflict structure dictates the geopolitical future of Eastern Europe for years to come. A state does not need to conquer an entire country to achieve strategic victory if it can reduce that enemy's ability to project power or influence regional security architecture. The fortress concept is a trap designed to bleed Ukraine dry, making long-term defense unsustainable without external intervention on a scale that has yet to materialize in full force. As the conflict drags into its fourth year of this attritional phase, the question shifts from who will win the next battle to which side can sustain the cost of holding ground when every meter gained comes at the price of thousands of lives and billions in lost economic potential. The strategic reality is that Russia does not need to conquer the whole country. They only need Ukraine's leadership to realize that holding specific cities requires sacrificing entire units, making long-term defense unsustainable. This realization forces a choice between losing territory or losing their entire reserve force in one day of fighting, a dilemma that has no good solution under current constraints. The path forward is not found in moral outrage over the loss of land, but in understanding how incentives shape state behavior when resources are finite and time is working against them. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.